one thing I would say about that is that I think for Western Christians, at the very least, I think they need to listen to the viewpoint of our Palestinian Christian brothers and sisters. Again, I think this is a voice that isn't often heard. And so what I find is that sometimes Christians in the West, they speak very, very strongly about framing exactly the nature of the conflict and the injustices and the problems, and they aren't really giving dignity to the Palestinian Christians to speak for themselves. So what I would just want to say is, let's let the Palestinian Christians describe what they feel the issues are, and at least have respect and dignity to hear what they're saying, and not try to force them to define it and frame it in a way that is suitable to us. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah.
What would you say are some of those voices? What are they saying? What are some of what is some of that pain that they're speaking about concretely? Some of those details, some of those aspects of that pain.
Yeah. Well, I think the wall is definitely clearly kind of a symbol of this. So of having to, especially in Bethlehem, come out of your house and see the wall every day, and then to see people to pass from Bethlehem to Jerusalem, and the process that they go through, and kind of so on the Israeli side, they would say, well, it's kind of an inconvenience. But on the Palestinian side, in Christians, that would say it's spilling coffee on your lap is an inconvenience. The indignity of going through that checkpoint every day and having to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning to stand in a line with thousands of others to go through, that it's more than a mere inconvenience. It's an indignity to their humanity. And then you have the injustice of the wall and the taking of land that isn't on the agreed upon lines and such like that. And so lives and families that are impacted, that are cut off from family members, that are cut off from their historical homelands, that their livelihood is disrupted and their farms are taken over, and so these would be some of the some of the.
I'll share a little vignette with you, an image that I've carried with me over the years. So one of the trips that I've taken to Israel, I was standing inside the old city at a point where there's a lot of traffic, human traffic, just people walking back and forth between the Israeli neighborhood and the Arab neighborhood within the old city. And there was a checkpoint there it wasn't the wall that we're talking about. There was 2 or 3 Israeli, either policemen or military, I wasn't sure which they were, young guys, college, they couldn't have been more than college age. And there were these group of young Arab men coming toward them, and much bigger than these Israeli policemen were, stronger. These guys had not a shred of hair in their body. These other Palestinian or Arab men were burly and had a beard, and really seemed very rough, capable of doing great harm to these guys. But they were policemen, they were armed, there were several soldiers there, and so they stopped these guys and proceeded to ask for their papers and check them and ask them questions and so on. I'm observing this entire scene here and seeing the obvious annoyance and anger of the Arab men and their sense of humiliation. We know Arab culture is a very proud, masculine culture, and so I'm sure that the pain that they felt was very deep.
Yes.
And as a Westerner, I'm watching this whole thing and saying, man, this really must seem very, very unjust to these guys.
Yeah.
And it didn't place the Israeli soldiers or policemen in a very good light. And yet, I was forced to say, but wait a minute, if I were these Israeli authorities, and I know that the general age of men who commit these terrorist acts is that age, there's a whole profile that I think, in a situation of war, as Israelis face, you have to profile. I think in America we talk about profiling, but the fact is that sometimes governments need to profile. We do that all the time in other areas. I mean, in real life. So I didn't see anything wrong with that. So when I forced myself to go beyond the superficial image, and I forced myself to delve deeply into the reality of war, of terrorism, of previous acts that have been committed by young men just like them, I was able to see that other side and say, wow, these militiamen are being forced to put themselves in a position that doesn't seem very charming or very attractive or morally appealing. Yeah. But it's a tragedy on both sides. It's a tragedy that these young Arab males have to be placed in that humiliating position. And it's a tragedy that these other young Israeli kids, they could probably be having coffee somewhere around the table. And yet circumstances, history, politics have placed them in very unflattering positions on both sides. On both sides, and I think it's sometimes so important that we kind of go into the complexity of both and see, because I think a lot of Christians like myself and other Jews would say, well, whose fault is that these indignities have to be suffered at that checkpoint? Is it the Palestinians, that Palestinian man who just wants to work, or is it Hezbollah and Hamas, who lobbed for a long time rockets right across the West Bank into these Israeli cities? And I've seen those rockets, by the way. I've seen, for example, how some of these cities are forced to have places for refuge every so many yards, and these loudspeakers that give you 10 seconds from the moment that they sound, because they know when a rocket has been thrown, and they have 10 seconds. And so this speaker will say, take cover. And you have about 10 seconds to somehow get a little bit of protection in one of these bunkers that are all over the place. Yeah. And so, unfortunately, I think that seems to be so much the problem, that the Palestinian militia, or rather the Israeli militia, are placed in this very uncomfortable position of doing this. And I'm sure there's a lot of injustice that takes place. Yeah. It's all over the place. Yeah. And so you have these two cultures really being forced by other players who are not so noble to act in ways that are inhumane and cruel even.
Yeah. So again, you have these victimization stories on both sides. But again, because we're often very polarized and we're a camp, we hear the victimization stories on one side and reinforce that. And human nature as it is, often what I think we often do, especially when we are kind of in these camps, what we tend to do is we tend to maximize and magnify the victimization on our side, and then we tend to and minimize the victimization on the other side. Yes. So I think what we want is to try and come to the truth and reality, and the generalizations and the demonization and the dehumanization that goes on both sides. Yeah. I just one little vignette or case study. So my daughter, one of the reasons that I get involved in this in the last few years is because my daughter served in Bethlehem for a year. And my wife and I, when we were on sabbatical, went to go visit our daughter, Janae. And she was serving at Bethlehem Bible College.
What year was this?
So this was just in 2010. Uh-huh. Yeah. Okay. And so, our daughter, in a sense, kind of led us into this a little bit. And Janae, because she worked on the Palestinian side of the wall, she definitely had a Palestinian Christian perspective. One of the things that I saw is that people that are introduced to this conflict, the person who frames it for you up front has tremendous power in, And so, I think it's because it is such a complex and nuanced thing, we need to be careful and slow about making quick judgments and to understand and to really try and hear both sides.